I want you to try something for me, just for a second. Wherever you are, unless you're driving, in which case, please keep your eyes on the road.
Definitely keep your eyes on the road.
But if you can, just close your eyes. And I want you to picture the most profound moment of your life. Maybe it was the birth of your child, seeing that first breath. Maybe it was standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon and just realizing how small you are.
That feeling of awe.
Yes, exactly. Or maybe it was a moment of intense prayer or meditation in a completely quiet room. That feeling, that sudden overwhelming shiver where the boundaries of you just seem to dissolve.
And you feel connected to something bigger.
Massive, something infinite. And historically, we file that whole experience under spirituality.
Right. It's a soul thing. It's ethereal. It's mysterious.
It's mysterious. But today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to take that ethereal feeling, that mystery, and we're going to put it under a microscope.
A very, very powerful microscope.
Because we have a stack of research here that suggests that soul experience isn't just happening in the ether. It is happening on a screen.
In real time, and it's happening in very specific coordinates in your gray matter.
This is the deep dive. And today, we are tackling a question that, philosophers have debated for millennia, but now biologists are starting to answer it.
It's a huge one.
Is the human brain hardwired for God?
It's a massive question.
Yeah.
And the answer, it turns out, is surprisingly concrete.
We're exploring a field called neurotheology. And we're going to find out that whether you're a devout believer, a spiritual seeker, or a total atheist, your brain processes these experiences using a very specific biological architecture.
Right. The hardware is the same for everyone.
We're going to see how a specific stack of neurons can trigger that sense of oneness. And this is the part that really, really got me. How seeing a religious symbol you dislike might actually cause your brain to physically blind you to it.
Oh, the visual suppression study. That one is absolutely fascinating and honestly a little unsettling.
It is unsettling. We'll get there. But we aren't just staying in the lab today. We're taking this science and we're going to apply it to a cold case.
A very cold case.
We're going to look at the biometrics of sacred architecture. And then we're going to do a forensic deep dive into one of the most controversial objects in all of human history, the Shroud of Turin.
And that's where the biology of belief slams right into the hard science of archaeology and material science. It's a collision.
So we have fMRI scans of nuns. We have the degradation rates of ancient flax. We have the God spot or the myth of it.
Yes, we definitely need to talk about that myth.
Our mission today is to unpack the mechanics of belief. And just a heads up, we are going to get into some brain anatomy, but we promise we'll keep it accessible.
Right. No dense medical jargon without a clear analogy. We want those aha moments, not a biology lecture.
Exactly. We're looking for the signal in the noise.
Yeah.
So let's start by defining the playing field. Neurotheology. It sounds like something out of a sci-fi novel. What exactly are we looking at here?
It does sound a bit futuristic, doesn't it? And sometimes you'll hear it called spiritual neuroscience. But really, it's a multidisciplinary bridge.
A bridge between what?
Well, on one side, you have the empirical, hard sciences, neuroscience, cognitive psychology, anthropology. On the other side, you have theology, the critical analysis of belief, of ritual, of religious experience.
So neurotheology is the link.
It's the link. It's the study of the correlation between what your brain is doing physically and what you're experiencing spiritually.
Okay, but I think we need to put a big disclaimer up front, because I think when people hear neuroscience of religion, they immediately assume the goal is to debunk it.
Absolutely. That is the #1 misconception.
Like, oh, look, we found the glitch in your temporal lobe. God isn't real, it's just a misfiring neuron.
Precisely. And it's a lazy take, frankly. Authentic neurotheology isn't an attempt to explain away religion as some kind of delusion. But to be fair, it isn't trying to prove the existence of God either.
It's neutral.
It's agnostic in its methodology. Think of it like studying a radio.
Okay, I like that. Unpack the radio analogy for me.
So if you're listening to a piece of music on the radio, let's say it's Beethoven, I can take that radio apart. I can show you how the transistors work, how the speaker vibrates, how the antenna catches the frequency. I can explain the mechanism of the sound perfectly.
Right, the physics of it.
The physics of it.
Yeah.
I can show you exactly why the speaker cone moves the way it does. But does explaining the radio prove that the orchestra doesn't exist?
No, of course not. It just explains how the music gets to me.
Exactly. We are observing the receiver. We are mapping the biological machinery that allows the human organism to process what we call spiritual data.
And whether that day is coming from a divine broadcast or just internal noise.
That is a question for the philosophers. The scientists are just looking at the hardware.
And what hardware it is. Let's jump into section 1 then, the brain itself. Because for a long time, there was this popular myth floating around called the God spot.
Oh yes, the God spot. It was inescapable for a while.
I remember reading about this in like Time magazine or something. The idea was that there was this one little button, maybe behind your ear or deep in the temporal lobe. And if you just stimulated that one spot, boom, you'd see angels. Instant enlightenment.
It was a very tidy narrative for the media, wasn't it? Made for great headlines. Scientists find the God gene, or the God switch.
Right.
But based on the extensive research we have here, and we're talking about work by pioneers like Dr. Andrew Newberg, Mario Beauregard, that idea is, well, it's fundamentally a myth.
So there is no spirituality button. I can't just go in and press play.
There's not. The brain is far, far too elegant for that. Spiritual experiences are incredibly complex. I mean, think about it. They involve emotion, sensory perception, memory, focus, social cognition.
You can't do all that with one button.
You can't. It's a network.
Why?
It's a whole brain workout.
So when a nun is praying or a Buddhist is meditating, their brain isn't just focusing on one spot. It's lighting up all over the map.
Exactly. It's like looking at a city from space at night. You don't just see one streetlight turn on. You see the whole grid lighting up. You see traffic moving between different hubs.
Okay, so let's break this network down. Let's get into the grid. If I'm that nun and I'm dropping into a state of deep prayer, what's the first thing that happens? Who's the captain of the ship?
The captain is the frontal lobe, specifically the prefrontal cortex. This is the newest part of the brain, evolutionarily speaking. It's right behind your forehead.
The CEO of the brain.
Yeah.
The planner.
Correct. It handles focused attention, planning, will. It's what you use when you're solving a hard math problem or, deciding not to eat that second donut.
A battle I lose often.
Me too. But studies show that this area is highly active during intense prayer or meditation.
Which makes sense, right? Because real prayer, real meditation, it isn't just zoning out, it's zoning in. It requires intense concentration.
That's a key distinction. A lot of people think meditation is just relaxation, just going limp. But biologically, it's an active state of high attention. Your frontal lobes are working hard.
So it's an exercise.
It is. And here's the cool part. Because the frontal lobes are also involved in emotional regulation, we see that long-term religious practice actually strengthens this area. It changes it physically.
So it's like a gym for your brain. You're doing reps for your prefrontal cortex.
You absolutely are. If you exercise that focus muscle through daily prayer or meditation, you tend to get better at regulating your emotions in daily life. You become less reactive, less volatile.
So the stereotype of the peaceful monk isn't just a learned behavior. It's a biological structure they've built over time. They've literally got a stronger emotional brake pedal.
Essentially, yes. They have physically altered the architecture of their frontal cortex. But here's where it gets really strange. While the frontal lobes are lighting up and working hard, something very different is happening in the back of the brain.
We're going now?
We're going to the parietal lobes.
Okay, orient me. What do the parietal lobes usually do when they're not meditating?
The parietal lobes are your orientation center. They're in the upper back part of the brain, and their main job is to orient you in three-dimensional space.
So, where I am in this room.
Exactly. They take all the sensory input, sight, sound, touch, and they create a map. They are constantly telling you, here is where my hand ends and here is where the table begins.
They define the boundary of me.
Precisely. They create and maintain the distinction between self and other. Without a functioning parietal lobe, you wouldn't be able to walk through a doorway without bumping into the frame. You wouldn't know where you physically fit in the world. It is constantly calculating your coordinates.
Okay, so I need that. I need to know where I am.
Yeah.
But what happens during these deep spiritual states? You said it was strange.
This is one of Dr. Newberg's most famous findings. In scans of people in deep meditation or prayer, what mystics might call union mystica, or mystical union activity in the parietal lobes, actually decreases.
It shuts down.
It quiets down significantly. Newberg calls it deferentation. Basically, the brain intentionally blocks the sensory input that's normally flowing to that region.
Wait a minute. So if the part of my brain that says, here is where I end and the world begins, goes offline, what do I feel?
You lose the boundary. The biological, physical distinction between you and the universe fades away.
So you feel.
You experience a literal feeling of oneness. You feel infinite. This explains why mystics across almost every single tradition, Christian, Sufi, Buddhist, Hindu, all describe the exact same sensation, merging with something larger than themselves.
That is wild, because usually when we hear that, we think it's poetic language. I am one with the universe, we think they're being metaphorical.
Right, we think they are being artsy or philosophical.
When you're saying it's not a metaphor, it's a biological event. They literally cannot feel where they stop and the universe starts because that part of the brain has gone dark.
That is the aha moment. The spiritual experience of transcendence is the result of a very specific, temporary modification in spatial processing. The brain stops drawing the line. It stops calculating the coordinates of the self.
That's fascinating. So you have the CEO focusing and the orientation center dissolving. What else is in the mix?
Well, you have to have emotion. So you have the limbic system, specifically the amygdala and the hippocampus.
The emotional core, the lizard brain.
Yes. The limbic system is the brain's label maker. It looks at an experience and it stamps it. This is boring, this is dangerous, or this is incredibly important.
So when people have these religious experiences and they come back and say it was the most real or significant moment of their entire lives,
that's the limbic system doing its job. It assigns profound significance to the moment. It tells you that this prayer is more important than what you're having for lunch. But there is a nuance here, and it's important.
What's that?
The amygdala is also the fear center.
Right. Fight or flight.
Exactly. So while it can process feelings of awe and ecstasy and divine love, it can also process terror. This is where you get the fear and trembling aspect of religion.
The wrath of God.
The fear of divine punishment, the awe of a wrathful deity. It's the same machinery processing two very different sides of the same coin.
And what's the last piece of the network?
The thalamus, which is sort of the sensory relay station.
And what does it do here?
The thalamus makes things feel real. It processes all the sensory data coming in. And what's interesting is that in lifelong practitioners, like monks who have meditated for decades, we see altered function here.
How so?
It suggests that for them, spiritual reality feels just as tangible, if not more so, than physical reality. To the brain of a true believer, God isn't some abstract concept. God is a sensory fact.
So it really is a whole brain event.
Right.
You've got the CEO directing traffic, the orientation center taking down the walls, the emotional center adding weight and importance, and the reality center cementing it all as truth.
It's a symphony. And like any biological process, that symphony runs on fuel. It runs on chemistry.
Which brings us to section 2, the chemistry, the so-called neurochemical cocktail. Because it's not just electricity zipping around, it's fluids too.
Correct. And again, we aren't inventing new chemicals for religion. The brain is very efficient. It uses its standard pharmacy to create these transcendent feelings.
So what are the main ingredients in this cocktail?
Well, you have dopamine. That's the big one. The reward chemical, the I did it or I want that chemical.
Okay.
You have serotonin, which regulates mood and is probably responsible for that peaceful afterglow people report after a deep meditation session. And then you have oxytocin.
The cuddle hormone, the bonding chemical.
That's the nickname. It's usually released during breastfeeding or between romantic partners. It creates feelings of trust and connection. But in a religious context, oxytocin likely facilitates that intense sense of bonding with a community or with a deity.
So when people say they feel held by God or bathed in divine love, that could be an oxytocin event.
It's very likely an oxytocin event, yes.
There was a study in our stack that really drove this home for me. The Mormon study from the University of Utah. This one was fascinating because they were looking specifically at that feeling Mormons call feeling the spirit.
Yes. This was a great piece of research, really elegant design. They took devout Mormons, people who had spent their lives in the church, served missions, and they put them into an fMRI scanner.
And what do they do with them in there?
They showed them religious quotes, videos of their church leaders, and they asked them to pray. And they had a little button. They told them, the moment you feel that peak spiritual feeling, press the button.
So they could capture the exact moment the subjects reported feeling the spirit.
Exactly. They were trying to get a snapshot of the brain at the peak of religious ecstasy. And what happened in the scan was remarkable.
Which area lit up?
The area that lit up most consistently and most brightly was the nucleus accumbens.
And for those of us who skipped med school, what is the nucleus accumbens?
It is the core of the brain's reward circuit. It is the primary pleasure center.
Yeah.
And here's the kicker. It is the exact same region that lights up when you have sex, when you listen to your favorite piece of music, when you win a hand of poker, and crucially, when you take addictive drugs like cocaine or methamphetamines.
Wow, okay. So, let me get this straight. When a believer says, I felt the Spirit and it was better than anything, biologically, they are not exaggerating.
They are not. Their brain is giving them a massive hit of reward in the very same spot that processes our most fundamental pleasures.
That puts a whole new spin on why religion is so powerful, and maybe why it's so hard for some people to leave a faith tradition. If your brain is getting a dopamine hit every Sunday, that's a powerful reinforcement loop.
It is. It implies that the brain processes spiritual fulfillment through the exact same primary reward infrastructure that's used for basic survival and pleasure.
So it's not some separate spiritual system, it's the main one.
It's the main one. It is biologically rewarding to believe. It feels good. It reinforces the behavior just like food or romance does.
But that study also looked at prayer specifically, right?
Yeah.
And I found this distinction really interesting. Not all prayer is created equal in the brain.
No, it's not. And this is a subtle but important finding. They found a significant difference between rote prayer and improvised prayer.
Rote prayer being like reciting the Lord's Prayer.
Right.
Or a memorized mantra.
Exactly. Something you've memorized and just repeat. That activates one set of regions, mostly related to memory and recitation. But improvised prayer, where you are just talking to God, pouring your heart out, having a conversation.
Like a dialogue.
Yes, that did something else entirely. It activated the temporoparietal junction and other social cognition areas.
Social cognition. That's the part of the brain we use to interact with other people.
Yeah.
To think about their thoughts and feelings.
Precisely. It's the theory of mind network. It's how you figure out what your friend is thinking or feeling. It's the relationship part of the brain. So, to the brain, talking to God looks almost identical to talking to a close friend or family member.
That is huge, because a skeptic will often say, you're just talking to the ceiling. But the brain doesn't see it that way.
Not at all.
The brain perceives a genuine interpersonal relationship. It's running the software for a real interaction.
It's an interaction. You aren't just broadcasting into the void. Your brain is engaged in a dialogue, even if the other side is silent. The mental machinery is running the relationship software. It feels like a conversation because to your brain, it is one.
So we've covered the internal wiring and the chemistry, but I want to pivot now to how the brain literally sees the sacred. Because we aren't just talking about internal feelings, we're talking about how we process the world around us through our eyes. And there is this study by Dr. Newberg, again, regarding the visual cortex, that honestly, it sounds like something out of a horror movie. It's so strange.
It is one of the more startling findings in the field, I agree. Newberg wanted to see how the brain processes religious symbols versus non-religious ones, so he showed participants a variety of images.
What kind of images?
Simple stuff. A cross, a Star of David, neutral things like a cup or a square, and then what he called negative religious symbols.
Like a picture of the devil, a pentagram or something.
Exactly. Depictions of evil, demons, things that represented a spiritual threat to the participants' belief system.
Okay, and what happened? What was he looking for?
Well, usually when you look at something, anything, your primary visual cortex, it's an area called V1 in the back of your head, it lights up. It's processing the data, it's taking in the lines and the colors and making sense of it.
The basic nuts and bolts of seeing.
Right. But when these participants viewed the negative religious symbols, activity in their visual cortex was significantly suppressed.
Suppressed, like the brain turned the dimmer switch down.
Effectively, yes. It's as if the brain refused to process the image fully. The analysis suggests that the brain might defensively shut out or dampen the visual processing of symbols it perceives as spiritually threatening.
It's a biological see no evil.
In a way, yes. It's almost a biological refusal to see.
That gives a whole new meaning to get thee behind me, Satan. It's like the brain is physically putting its hands over its eyes.
It's a kind of defensive filter. But here is the nuance, and I love this part of the study. This didn't happen to everyone. It depended on their personality.
How do they measure that?
They measured the participants using something called the Quest scale.
The Quest scale, what's that?
It measures how open-ended your religious approach is. A high Quest score means you view religion as a journey, a set of questions you're always exploring. You're a seeker. A low score usually implies you are more dogmatic or settled in your belief.
Yeah.
Certainty is high.
Okay, and what was the difference?
The high Quest people, the seekers, showed more activity in the visual cortex when they saw the negative symbols. Their brains were more willing to look at the threat, to engage with it.
While the more dogmatic people's brains were filtering it out, protecting the system.
It seems that way. It suggests our beliefs, our very approach to faith, literally shapes what we physically see. We don't just see the world as it is, we see it as we are wired to believe.
And it's not just symbols on a screen, is it? It's whole environments. This brings us to the sacred architecture study.
Right. Julio Bermudez at the Catholic University of America, he asked a fascinating question. Does a building designed for God affect the brain differently than a building designed for trains?
So he compared a massive church and a massive train station.
Specifically, the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in D.C., which is just enormous and incredibly ornate, and Union Station, which is also enormous and ornate. They are both grand, awe-inspiring spaces.
So that controls for the wow factor, but just being a big, beautiful building.
Exactly. He wanted to isolate the sacred variable.
Right.
He strapped mobile EEG units and eye trackers onto people and sent them into both buildings. And the results were starkly different.
What did he find in the basilica?
In the basilica, they saw a significant spike in gamma activity.
Gamma waves. Remind me, those are the high-frequency ones, right?
The highest frequency, yes. Gamma waves are associated with intense focus, high-level information binding, and insight. It's the brainwave of aha, or deep meditative states.
Okay, so their brains were super focused. What else?
Simultaneously, the default mode network, or DMN, was suppressed.
The default mode network is my nemesis. That's the part of the brain that's active when I'm daydreaming or worrying about my grocery list or replaying an argument I had 5 years ago.
It's the mind-wandering network, exactly. So think about what happened. The sacred architecture physically stopped the mind from wandering. It shut down the inner chatter.
It forced a unique state of attentive stillness.
That's the perfect phrase for it. The building itself acted as an external scaffold to hack the brain into a spiritual state. The architecture did the work for you.
That's incredible. The arches, the stained glass, the echo, the silence, they aren't just decorations, they are biohacks.
They are technologies. Ancient technologies designed to engineer a specific state of consciousness.
So we've looked at the internal wiring, the chemistry, the symbols on a screen, and the buildings we walk into. But now I want to take this to the next level. We've talked about how the brain reacts to general symbols. But what happens when it encounters an object that claims to be the physical, tangible evidence of the divine?
Now we are transitioning to relics.
Relics, and not just any relic. We are talking about the big one, the Shroud of Turin.
This is where we move from a general discussion of neurotheology to a very specific and very contentious scientific cold case.
And how do relics fit in?
Well, if symbols and buildings can change brain states, relics function as what you might call neurobiological catalysts. They trigger those reward pathways we talked about, but they do it with an intensity that a mere symbol can't. They reframe mental models of the cosmos in a very tangible, physical way.
Okay, so for anyone who might not know the full story, lay it out for us. What is the shroud?
It is a 14-foot length of linen cloth woven in a complex herringbone pattern. It bears the faint, sepia-colored image of a naked man, front and back, who appears to have suffered the specific brutal trauma of a Roman crucifixion.
And for centuries, it has been venerated by many as the actual burial shroud of Jesus of Nazareth.
That is the tradition, yes.
But for a lot of people, and I'll admit I was in this camp for a long time, this case was closed back in the 80s. I remember learning about this in school. The carbon dating.
Ah, yes, the 1988 carbon-14 dating. This was supposed to be the final definitive word. 3 of the most prestigious labs in the world, Oxford, Arizona, and Zurich, were given a small snippet of the cloth.
And they all tested it independently.
Correct, and the result came back, and it was a bombshell.
What was the date?
They dated it to between 1290 and 1390 AD.
Medieval. A fake. Case closed.
That was the conclusion. The headline around the world was, "A brilliant medieval forgery." The world moved on. The scientific community largely said, well, that explains that. But science doesn't stand still.
And recently, there has been a significant plot twist that has reopened the entire file.
A major one. And this is the new study from the Bari Institute of Crystallography in Italy. And they used a totally different dating method, right?
Completely different. Dr. Liberato Di Caro and his team used something called wide-angle X-ray scattering, or WAXS.
Okay, WAXS. How is that different from carbon dating? What is it measuring? So carbon dating counts decaying carbon-14 isotopes. It works well, but it can be contaminated by things that add new carbon-like smoke from fires the shroud survived, dirt, bacteria from centuries of being handled.
And WAXS avoids that problem.
It does. It looks at the structural degradation of the flax cellulose itself. It's a physical measurement, not a chemical one.
Like checking the mileage on the fibers instead of checking the fuel.
That's a perfect analogy. Cellulose consists of long chains of sugar molecules. Over time, these chains break down and the natural crystal structure changes and becomes more disordered. It's a very predictable aging process, like a clock.
So they measured how much the crystal structure of the linen had broken down.
They did, and their finding was shocking.
What did they find?
They concluded that the structural degradation of the flax is compatible with the date range of 55 to 74 AD.
Whoa. Wait, say that again?
The 55 to 74 AD.
That puts it exactly in the time of Christ.
It does, but, and we have to be rigorous here, as the scientists themselves were, there is a caveat, a big one.
Okay, what is it?
They noted that this dating holds true only if the shroud was kept at a pretty constant temperature and humidity for centuries. Roughly 22 degrees Celsius and 55% humidity for the 13 centuries before it formally appeared in Europe.
That sounds oddly specific. How could anyone possibly guarantee that?
They can't. That's the weak point in the conclusion. However, they did compare the degradation profile to other ancient linen samples. And it perfectly matches ancient linen samples from Masada, Israel, which are independently dated to 5574 AD, and it does not match the profile of any medieval linen samples they tested. So we have a direct conflict.
It's a scientific standoff. The carbon-14 test says it's medieval. The X-ray test says it looks and acts exactly like an ancient artifact from the time of Christ.
A direct standoff. And it's not just the dating, right? There are other clues on this cloth that they don't add up for a medieval forger.
No, they don't. I mean, take the pollen, for instance.
Exactly. Forensic botanists have vacuumed the cloth and found pollen grains on it that are exclusive to plants found in the Jerusalem area, specifically the Gundelia tournefortii, a thorny plant that grows there.
Which suggests the cloth spent a significant amount of time in the Middle East, not just France or Italy.
Precisely. Then there is the blood.
It's real blood.
It is absolutely real human blood, confirmed type AB. It contains human hemoglobin, albumin, and high levels of bilirubin.
And the high bilirubin is significant. Why?
Your bilirubin levels spike when you are under extreme physical stress or trauma. So it's real blood from a man who was severely tortured before he died.
But the image itself is the weirdest part of all. It's a negative, right?
That is the feature that launched the modern scientific investigation into the shroud. The image is incredibly faint. If you stand right up close to it, it almost disappears into the weave of the cloth.
Okay.
But in 1898, an amateur photographer named Secondo Pia took the first ever photograph of it. And when he went into his darkroom to develop his negative glass plate, he almost dropped it from shock.
Because the negative plate showed a positive image.
A perfectly detailed, clear, positive image of a man's face. This implies that the image on the cloth is itself a natural negative.
Which means if a medieval forger made this, he would have had to understand the concept of photographic negatives hundreds of years before photography was even invented.
And he would have had to paint it in reverse without being able to see what he was really doing. And it gets even weirder than that. The image contains three-dimensional data.
What does that even mean? How could a 2D image have 3D data?
Right. So back in the 70s, scientists who worked for NASA put a photo of the shroud into something called a VP8 image analyzer. This was a tool they used to map the terrain on planets like Mars from 2D satellite photos.
Okay.
When you take a normal photo of a person and put it into the VP8, the result looks distorted and bizarre. Because a photo is flat, there's no depth information. But when they put the shroud image into the VP8, it produced a perfect, anatomically correct 3D relief of a human form.
How?
The density of the image on the cloth directly correlates to the distance of the cloth from the body underneath it.
But paintings don't do that.
No, a painting has no distance information encoded in it. So we are left with a profound mystery. We have a medieval date from one test, an ancient date from another, and an image with properties that we still cannot replicate with all of our modern technology.
But let's bring this back to our main topic, the brain. Why does the shroud matter so much to neurotheology?
Because think about what happens when a believer looks at that face. We talked about symbols earlier, a cross, a star. This isn't just a symbol. To the believer, this is potentially the face of God.
It connects directly to that reward system again, but on a whole other level.
On a whole other level, it engages the brain's attachment systems. There's a concept in neurotheology about God representations. How do you picture God?
Right, an old man with a beard, a blinding light.
Exactly. And if you view God as an authoritarian judge in the sky, your amygdala, the fear center, lights up. But if you view God as loving, as suffering with you, it activates the social engagement and oxytocin systems.
And the shroud is the ultimate image of a suffering God.
It is the ultimate image. It shows a man who has been beaten, scoured, crowned with thorns, and killed. There was a saint, Therese of Lisieux, who had a deep devotion to this holy face. It's used to renovate your internal mental model of God.
It rewires the God concept from cop to comforter.
Precisely. Instead of an abstract, scary judge, the brain is presented with a human face in repose, a face that is suffering but also profoundly peaceful. It allows the brain to shift its entire relationship with the divine from one of fear to one of attachment and love.
And from the brain's perspective, it doesn't even matter if it's real or not.
Correct. Whether the cloth is authentic or not, the neurobiological effect on the believer looking at it is absolutely real. The relic acts as a focal point, a neurobiological catalyst that allows the brain to access those states of transcendence and peace we discussed earlier.
That is a powerful connection. It makes you realize why these objects have such a hold on human history. They are physical keys to a mental state.
But this raises a broader question, a much bigger question. Why do we have these keys at all? Why is the brain built this way in the first place? Why do we even have a receiver for this signal?
Section 5, Evolution and the Big Why. Did we evolve to believe?
This is the great debate in evolutionary psychology, and there are two main camps. The first is the adaptive theory.
This is the idea that religion actually helped us survive as a species.
Yes, it conferred a survival advantage. Think about social cohesion. If a tribe believes in the same God and follows the same moral rules, they cooperate better, they hunt better, they defend themselves better. They outcompete the tribe next door that is constantly fighting amongst themselves.
It also helps with stress, right?
Massively. Religion reduces existential anxiety. A brain that isn't paralyzed by the fear of death is a more effective brain. It's more focused on surviving the here and now.
So survival of the faithful. That makes a lot of sense. What's the other theory?
The other theory is called the spandrel theory.
A spandrel, like in architecture.
Exactly. In architecture, a spandrel is just that triangular space between two arches. It's not designed to be there. It's just an inevitable byproduct of the design of putting two arches together.
So religion is an accident, a side effect of something else.
The theory suggests that religion is a byproduct of having a big brain that is obsessed with finding patterns and agency. We have what some call a hyperactive agency detection device.
Meaning we see intention everywhere.
Everywhere. If you are a primitive human and a bush rustles, you have two choices. You can assume it's just the wind, or you can assume it's a tiger, an agent.
And if you assume it's a tiger and you're wrong,
you're just embarrassed for a second. But if you assume it's the wind and you're wrong, you're lunch.
So we are biologically programmed to survive because we assume agency.
Exactly. And then we apply that same logic to the entire universe. The sun comes up, someone must be pulling it. There's a thunderstorm, someone must be angry. We see agency where there is none. We see faces in clouds. We see gods in the weather. So in this view, religion is just our pattern recognition software running in overdrive.
So which is it? A life-saving adaptation or an accidental byproduct?
It is likely a mix of both. The brain is definitely a belief engine, but the fact that this byproduct confers such significant survival and mental health benefits suggests it became adaptive over time.
Let's talk about those benefits, because our research points to a mental health paradox here. Religion can be really good for you, or it can be really, really bad for you.
It is a profound double-edged sword. On the good side, studies show that a high degree of religious importance in a person's life correlates with thicker cortices in the brain, specifically in the parietal and occipital regions.
And a thicker cortex is a good thing.
Generally, yes. It suggests more neural connections and resilience. And in fact, other studies show that people with this thicker cortex profile who are at high genetic risk for depression are actually more resilient against it. The belief acts as a buffer.
So it's like a biological prophylactic against depression. That's huge. But what's the bad side?
The bad side is fear-based religion. If your primary spiritual experience is fear of God, fear of hell, or overwhelming guilt, that correlates with decreased volume in the orbitofrontal cortex and increased chronic amygdala activity.
So a loving God thickens your brain, And a scary God shrinks parts of it and puts you in a state of constant fear.
That is a simplification, but directionally, yes. Chronic fear is toxic to the brain, whether it's fear of predator or fear of a deity. And this has real clinical applications. Therapists are starting to use a spiritual history to understand a patient's mental health. For one person, prayer is a resource. For another, it's the primary source of their stress.
We also have to touch on the pathology versus piety issue.
Right.
Because you do hear about people with, say, schizophrenia having religious delusions.
Yeah.
Or temporal lobe epilepsy.
Yes. The Russian novelist Dostoevsky, for example, had epilepsy and described moments of incredible bliss and oneness right before a seizure. Hyperreligiosity is a known symptom of some temporal lobe issues.
So how do you tell the difference between a genuine mystic and a medical condition?
It usually comes down to distress and function. Mental disorders are, by definition, maladaptive and distressing. They make life harder, you can't hold a job, you're terrified, your relationships fall apart.
And authentic spiritual experiences.
According to thousands of surveys, they are overwhelmingly described as positive, transformative, and life-enhancing. 90% or more describe them in positive terms.
So if the vision makes you kinder, more compassionate, and more peaceful, it's likely not a pathology.
That's a good rule of thumb, as the saying goes. By their fruits ye shall know them. Even neuroscience ends up quoting scripture sometimes.
Which brings us, I think, to our final section, the deep end. The philosophy of neurotheology. Because we've mapped the hardware, we know about the parietal lobe, the dopamine, the WXS dating, but we haven't answered the biggest question of all.
Causality.
Causality. Does the brain create God, like a hallucination? Or does the brain perceive God, like a radio receiver picking up a signal?
This is the crux of the entire matter, and it's where science has to admit its limits.
Right. Go back to your analogy from the beginning. If I smash the radio with a hammer, the music stops. But that doesn't mean the radio created the music.
Precisely. Neuroscience can observe the mechanism, the radio receiver lighting up. We can see the parietal lobe shut down. We can measure the dopamine flow. But neuroscience cannot, by its very nature, confirm the source of the signal.
The materialist view would say, it's all neurons firing. We can reproduce these feelings with drugs or magnets. God is a delusion.
Correct. They would say that because we can explain the receiver perfectly, there's no need to pause a broadcast. The music is coming from inside the radio.
But the non-materialist view.
Someone like Mario Beauregard would argue that the mind or consciousness exists independently and uses the brain as an interface. The brain is the filter. It reduces the infinite consciousness of the divine down to something our little biological organisms can handle without short-circuiting.
That's a trippy thought. So when the parietal lobe shuts down, it's not creating an illusion of oneness. It's temporarily removing the filter that prevents us from seeing the fundamental reality of oneness.
That is the argument. The brain is a reducing valve, and sometimes through prayer or meditation or looking at a relic, we learn how to open the valve just a little bit.
This requires what some of the researchers in our stack called epistemological humility.
A very fancy way of saying we have to be honest about what we don't know. Science is a powerful tool. It can measure the effect of prayer on blood pressure or gamma waves. It can date the flax fibers of the shroud, but it cannot measure the truth of the theology itself.
As Andrew Newberg says, we must keep science rigorous and religion religious.
It's the only honest approach.
So let's wrap this incredible journey up. We've been on quite a ride today.
We really have. We started with the God spot myth and found a complex whole brain network instead. We saw how the frontal lobes focus our attention and how the parietal lobes can dissolve the self.
We looked at the chemistry, the dopamine and oxytocin that make belief feel so good, so rewarding. We saw how the visual cortex can literally shut down to block out negative symbols, and how sacred architecture can hack our brainwaves to force us into a state of stillness.
And we ended with the Shroud of Turin, a physical object that defies any easy explanation, caught between conflicting scientific dates, yet serving as a powerful neurobiological catalyst for millions of people.
The one thing that seems undeniable is that our brains are equipped to engage with the divine. We have the hardware for transcendence built in.
We are wired for it. Whether that wiring is an accident of evolution or a feature of a divine design, well, that is the question each of us has to answer for ourselves.
And that leads to our final thought for today. A provocation for you, the listener, to take with you.
If our brains are so perfectly wired to connect with a higher power, if activating that connection releases our deepest reward chemicals and literally thickens our brain's resilience against despair, does that mean we simply evolved to invent a comforting lie?
Or Does the existence of a perfect receiver imply the existence of a broadcaster?
The next time you feel a moment of awe, whether it's in a church, looking at a piece of art, or just walking in the woods, ask yourself, are you looking at the world?
Or are you looking at the architecture of your own mind?
Perhaps in that one moment, there is no difference at all.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.